On today's episode of Watch Jericho, we are back with my Ford C600, the CabOver C-Series, and today I'm going to show you guys how to work on this thing. It's got a lot of problems, and we're going to try to tackle a couple of them. What is going on, guys? I'm Watch Jericho, and like I said, we're here with my C600 that used to belong to a John Deere dealership. And I gotta say this correctly here. It was D.E. Wirtz & Co. in Charlotte. You can't say Charlotte, apparently, Michigan. So there were about hundreds of comments saying that you don't pronounce Charlotte like Charlotte. You have to say Charlotte. So I got you guys. This truck is very cool. I bought it for $1,000, as you know. And in the last video, after we drug it around with the tractor, it started right up. So the main problems we need to tackle are the starter does not crank. It doesn't crank if you put your jump pack on the terminal on the starter and turn it on. So it's very stuck. And also the carburetor won't idle. So the idle circuit's plugged up. It runs pretty well if you sit there and bounce the throttle. And of course there's a huge vacuum leak to tackle too. So first of all, I want to show you guys how you open a CabOver, because I didn't think I was going to be able to open this. And you know, people service these things on the side of the road. I've seen them open before, and I've always seen some that have like locks that hold them open, but I've never seen one that will basically open itself. So let's open this thing up. First things first, you have this giant handle right here that goes to the lock mechanism. And it's kind of, it locks in on itself a little bit. So you yank that thing up, and you can see the cab starts to move a little bit. And then you need to get the pressure off of this and then unlock it. And once you're through the cam and the first lock, you have a secondary lock you have to pull as well. So you pull down again, unlock it, and the cab starts opening up. Now, of course, I've got a bunch of cancer right here that has ruined the handle you're supposed to use to manipulate the cab. And it has these gigantic springs. Let's lock this thing in for safety. All right, okay, it's resting. These gigantic springs lift the cab up. Those things are just absolutely outrageous, and it's so well balanced. As you saw, I just opened it with, you know, no force at all. Show you guys. That's how easy it is to open and close the CabOver, which was pretty impressive, I thought. So today we're going to jump in here. We can access the starter from right here under the frame in between the leaf spring. It should be pretty easy. And of course the carburetor, we can stand on top of the engine since we have so much room to work. We should be able to get that out very quickly. You know, throttle cable, fuel line, return springs, and 4 bolts. That should get this carburetor out of there, and we can start cleaning that up. We might even have it clean and back together tonight, who knows? We just need to take drill bits and clean everything out. So let's get to work, start pulling some bolts out of this thing. That starter is covered in oil though, I gotta say. And as far as our troubleshooting, we've had power directly on this terminal here, which runs straight to the starter, and it has a frame ground that's right there. I think that's the frame ground for the starter, and it honestly looks like it's in pretty good shape, but we're not getting any response from that starter, even with a couple hammer taps. Jared is here with us, so he ran in to grab some tools, and while he's doing that, I will unhook everything I can on the carb. Oh, look at that, whole socket set. He's on it. Socket set was what we needed. Hopefully, ooh, this does not pop off. We do actually need to unbolt the throttle rod here. And the throttle is a solid linkage, as you can see, with like a jack shaft that runs down, and somehow all this geometry stays correct even with the cab open, which is a very cool feature. Here's another thing you guys won't be impressed by. Whenever we make this thing run, what we have to do is hook this green wire that runs over to the battery directly up to the battery, and that is directly hooked up to the ignition coil right there, and also this aftermarket fuel pump here. So I do want to fix the ignition and all of that. That's going to be a future episode. I have a new key cylinder coming, I think. I think I got the right one. Actually, let's find out real quick. Open up the doors, which are very heavy when it's open. And take a look at this key switch here. Just unscrew it like this. This was just laying on the floorboard when I picked the truck up, just kind of chilling by the wires. So hopefully, once we get this fixed, we can throw all this away, which is the remote starter that somebody rigged up. There's the ignition switch. And I do think I bought the right one. It also looks like this one's been on fire once. Did you already get both bolts out while I was walking around?
Working on the second one.
That should be it, other than the wiring, right?
Should be. The ring gear looks good, so that's a plus.
Definitely good. This starter is actually 2 bolts. That's all that hold it on right there. I know it's tough to see them with the sun, but that starter looks like it looks all right. It's been recently replaced. The tag's nice and clear on it. And we've already got the wiring off the solenoid as well. As you guys know, we got the starter off the truck and it's in here on the workbench where apparently Jared has a million other starters laid out, ready to be worked on. And
They're all brand new.
They're all brand new. You guys already know, once you put these things on a bench, they work immediately. So he grabbed jumper cables. I know we're gonna hook this thing up and it's gonna start working. Like I said, I've connected directly to it and it didn't move an inch. So hopefully now we get something out of it. Ooh, it just welds.
He's locked up.
That thing is locked up. It looks pretty nice inside, honestly.
Yeah, it does.
Hard to be upset about that.
Looks very good.
Brand new. It does have the sticker on it that's still holding up, which is a good sign for this being pretty new. Ready? Nope.
It tried.
Oh, it is moving. Here, let's get one close up.
It's moving.
Yeah, I see it bumping a little bit there.
No, it's turning.
Oh!
It needs to come apart.
There's the starter exploded diagram for you guys to take a look at. There's a little bit of brush dust built up in there.
Oh yeah.
She's a little bit nasty.
It's seen some use.
It has. Crazy for how new the thing probably is. But look at the grease on the Bendix there. It looks incredible. You can see how that thing flies out when it energizes. It just does that maneuver there. It actually gets some help from the Bendix pull-in magnet.
Yeah.
And that helps fling it out and engage the flywheel. But this thing's in relatively good shape, so I guess what, we're just gonna blow it all out, wipe it all off, and
Clean it up, put it back together.
Put it back together. Here you go, we're finishing cleaning up the entire starter. This is the front housing, the main housing, all cleaned up, brushes all clean, cleaned up the solenoid cover and everything like that. And Jared has the armature over here in the lathe. He's doing a little bit of magic. Just emery cloth or what?
Yeah, just
Ooh, that's shiny.
polishing that brush surface.
That looks a lot better than it did. Time to re-grease everything, put it all back together. The bushing looked okay. At least the front one. I think the rear one looks good too. We better clean this off too. Brush is going back in. That's looking brand new inside. And of course, the most complicated part of the whole thing, the Bendix has to go in and the throwout magnet there.
This drops down into...
Has to drop on there. Forward a little bit. About there. There, what? Drop right on. Just falls together. Of course, we got a little clip that has to drop back on. I think that clip goes on now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, before the front cover. There we go.
Like that.
Starter is all back together. Time for a quick test. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing at all. Fully charged. I don't know if we have a good connection on the positive side there. Or here. But we are getting nothing.
There's a broken connection in there somewhere.
Back on the jumper cables, we've got something coming out of this thing. It's just, it's barely running. See if we can get a better bite on the lugs. Time for the welding. Hey! There's a little bit of something.
Yeah, not enough to...
It's not enough. Hey! Look at that. All right, we're trying again with more power. Same. Hold it. I don't know. Definitely not pulling it in. It's not generating enough field. Well, starter, we tried everything. Hallelujah. Hey, look at this, the original truck spec sheet's in here. Wheelbase 175, C600 gas, and the engine should be a Ford 330. You guys can see that. And the here's the rear diff, actually, a 583/812. That's our two ratios. Pretty cool. All right, carburetor time. Let's get these throttle cables out of here. Look at that. The screws weren't over tightened. Here comes the fun part. If we can get this fuel line off of here, it's gonna come off. Wow, they cut the line and it runs all the way to right there. It's gonna take me a while to wiggle this thing off of here. We got the fuel line unhooked from the front of the carb, all the cables laid aside over there, and of course, a couple more turns on these last two nuts, and we should have the entire carburetor off this thing, and that hard throttle linkage had to come off too. It does feel like the accelerator pump is very dead, even though it was clearly working while we were driving the thing around. Dad was just running this throttle like non-stop so the accelerator pump would do its magic, and it kept it running. So this should be the last nut, and this thing should just pop right off, and we'll have parts for the starter and the carburetor here tomorrow. Look at that, the gasket even stayed intact. I gotta go grab some rags that I can shove in this hole, but it is so easy to work on this thing. If I take a few steps back, you can access the whole engine just kind of standing up here on the frame rails, which is pretty sweet. That's how you work on a Ford CabOver. Well, there you go, guys. Just in time for us to run out of light, we got this thing all apart and ready to put it back together tomorrow. And hopefully with a carburetor and a starter, we are halfway there to having a driver back. So I think we've got a good plan to get this all back together, and I can't wait to actually hit the starter button at least. We'll start with that, and then hopefully move on to an ignition switch and drive this thing around. So, hit our safety there. Whoop. We'll hit our safety there. Oh. And that is how you work on a CabOver Ford. I think I landed it on the fuel line there because that was a lot of hissing. And I don't know what else would have been hissing in there. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.watchjargo.com for cool shirts, not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. And I will talk to you next time. Drove the work portion of the shop. I was planning on working on this today, but the parts won't be here until maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Waiting on parts. Perpetual waiting on parts. Pulled the screws out of the carb real quick. I wanted to take a look at it. Also, the carb tag's actually on here. Half the time these things are gone. A D2 PFPA. And of course, you gotta pull the air cleaner bolt out as well. And now we ought to be able to look down inside here. And that is not a pretty picture. Ooh. I'm gonna try to pop these gaskets off real carefully so you guys can see in the float bowl. A little bit of cleaning and we should get this thing together. I know it's hard to see, but it is just full of rust and mud. So try to add a little bit more light for you guys. Look at that. Float bowl looks rough, which means everything else is gonna look pretty rough as well. We'll have to pull all the bolts out, clean the jets, clean all the passages out, put it back together, and it should run.